Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are in the world today, you're on the new way. And I'm Dr. Lenny Thyme. I'm the new way guide, and I got something I wanted to get off my chest. I haven't been real well lately. You can hear from my voice, it's kind of creaky. But I've been trying to watch video on the internet and not pay attention to the drama that's created by the absurdity of the situation. And what I find is that almost everything rotates back to the same drama. There's very few people out there talking about things that are not being talked about by the news or the knee jerk response to the news. The news is all made up, it's nothing new. Our news, the new way, we want to weigh everything we're dealing with and see if it is correct or not, but we can't do that in the overwhelming conversation that exists now where everybody drags everything back to everything that is being told to us. If I go out and take a walk wherever I wish to, there is nobody telling me about wars in the world, and there's peace on the walk. I don't have a pet right now that I walk with. I used to walk with my cats. Before that, I used to walk with my dogs. Right now, I have a cat, but I live in a trailer park and it doesn't follow me. It's used to the trailer park. It lives here fine. It's fine. I live in a trailer park because I refuse to pay the outrageous sums of money that it costs for rent today. I really don't like to play in the system at all. It's not my game, but there is no way to get out of the system. So you have to sort of tread water at the base level of the system, but not participate. And if we can take our thoughts completely off of the system, then we can get something done. All right, I have my guest star here. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, Lenny, how are you?
All right,
Feeling
I
better, I
am.
hope.
I am, but you can hear from my voice. I'm feeling better, but I'm not all that much better. I think that once I get to the sauna and burn it out later today, I'll be fine.
Boy, I'd love to take a sauna. Oh, that would do me a world of good.
It's real important. I get my sauna in once a week, and last week I was pondering a bonus second sauna. But the day I was going to take the second sauna, it was under 30 degrees out, and I didn't really feel like hiking into town, which was a good thing I didn't because the next day I was sick. And it's mostly swollen glands and stuff like that,
Yeah,
runny nose, itchy eyes. And in fact, I woke up yesterday morning and something was wrong with my sight. The whole room had a reddish hue. And when I started checking, my left eye and my right eye were out of sync. So I had a reddish hue on the left eye and normal light on the right eye. And when it tried to blend, it just made things into a blur.
that's weird. I mean, so you didn't have binocular vision. That's just
Yeah.
very unusual.
And it took about an hour to straighten out.
Hmm.
And I figured out what it must have been is that when I was sleeping, the way I was on the pillow, I had the pillow in my eye. So I must have pressed my eyeball out of round, and so it wasn't seeing things clearly because
Right.
after a night of sleep where there was pressure on the eye, it was out of kilter. But it was very strange, very strange.
So it sounds very strange, and a little unsettling to say the least.
Well, I'm glad it came back to normal. What was unsettling about it was, all right, if this is going to be my new way of sight, how the hell am I going to read? But it's really important to read books because they have absolutely nothing to do with what's going on in the world today. And to avoid the insanity of the world takes cognizant thought and trying to get away from it.
Yeah, I should
Everywhere
read
you
more
turn.
myself. I was a voracious reader when I was younger, but because I became a writer and a professional writer, you know, and I've told you I've been published many, many times,
Yep.
and once I started writing seriously, I stopped reading so much. And perhaps that doesn't make sense. I don't know.
No, it makes perfect sense because if you're reading a lot, you don't know which ideas are yours and which ones you're picking up off somebody else. It's the same reason why I don't watch biologists and biochemists on the internet because
Right.
I have enough deep thought of biology and how the biochemistry needs to work that when they start talking the nonsense that they generally talk, I need to turn them around. And
Yeah.
even the ones who are good, like Bruce Lipton, if I
Yeah.
watch Bruce Lipton, I walk away thinking, well, he was right in that, and he wasn't right on this, and he sort of got the idea, but and by the time I've worked it all out, I don't know Lenny's thoughts from Bruce Lipton's thoughts in areas that are now a hybrid of the thing. So I'd rather just not listen to him talk about the same stuff. And when other people watch both of us, they can catch up with what the main gist is because I think he's pretty much got it right. I think that I think that memory is a function of frequency and that frequency can be altered by, let's say, call it a state of excitement, but that if you are in your ground state, you're at a resonant frequency that belongs to you. And when you're in your resonant frequency, you you think well and you feel good about thinking. When you're stressed out and somebody starts impinging on your frequency, then your thought may not be as clear, and the things that end up happening are not the result of your individual action, but of the combination of how you think and the frequency that you're thinking at. When you're in a conversation like the one we're in now, we're at a different frequency than either one of us can achieve without the other. And most people would think that the conversation is a 50-50 balance between you and I, or something between 40 and 60. But a lot of times it doesn't work that way. That one person's resonance has a much stronger frequency coefficient, and therefore that person pulls the other person more off from where they normally are. And it's off and on resonance are not important to function. What I'm talking about is quality of thought, not function of thought.
Yeah.
And what I find today is that just about everything I deal with when I walk out the door of my trailer pulls me back to a frequency I really don't want to be on. And so I avoid going out, or when I go out, I go to the healing center and the grocery store and the restaurant, which the restaurant is actually a bar. There's two different restaurants in town, both are bars. There's a breakfast shop, but they're not very good. There's a bakery, which used to be better, but still it's fresh bread, and so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But other than that, I keep my routine sort of down to a small series of places. And the dome that Libby bought that I I put up the money so that she could buy the dome so that it could go to the healing center and be used as an operational stage. And it's not there yet. Right now, it's being used for storage as things are getting moved around. But after the first of the year, the healing center is going to be open for business for people to come. And it's going to be like an Airbnb sort of. You're not going to be able to come and rent a place. What you're going to do is come to the healing center, and there will be places that the healing center can put you up. And depending on whether you're there for 3 days on the sauna massage kick, or if you're there for 2 weeks on a real health cleanse, or what, you might be in a cabin, you might be in common space. We just don't know yet. The business has in the past served PCT hikers, Pacific Crest Trail. And so a lot of people will drop in, spend a day or two, and then drop out, go back onto the trail. And so we're figuring that by putting people up, feeding them good, healthy food, letting them have access to healing quality and getting worked on for their back or their muscles or whatever it requires, that we have a pretty good niche in the local area that will bring people in, sort of a touristy trade where they can come in, hang out for a while with us, and then take off. And I'm thinking that that's really going to work well.
How much do you must be charging for this, right?
They will be,
Yeah,
but I'm not sure what the price schedule is because it's still being worked out.
sure.
Typically, the sauna is $25 for 2 hours. A massage is $75 for a full hour. The space rental is to be determined because there hasn't been any rentable space yet. And only 2 people have been in the destination healing area to come in and stay for a while, one of whom is currently there. And I think she's paying $300 for 4 weeks.
Hmm.
But I do not know that for a fact, and I'm not privy to the economics of the situation yet. But I'm going to be on the board of directors and be the person looking over the books. So I will figure out what's going on. I don't know if you knew this, but there were 4 years I spent as the treasurer of the Reform Party of Oregon,
No, how about that?
where I had fiduciary responsibility for the political party within the state. And so I had to be bonded and jump through a whole bunch of hoops and got frustrated by having to deal with the Secretary of State who thought that I was his employee when I was a volunteer treasurer for a political party. And they made me jump through hoops for over a year to close the party down because they wanted it zero balanced. And I got it under $10, and they wouldn't accept that. They needed it zero balanced. And so for months, they wouldn't close the party because it wasn't zero balanced until I figured out I could spend the $7.50 I had on stamps and send a couple people notification that the party was closing. But it was
Yeah.
stupid. And that's what gave me the biggest distaste in politicians totally, was the hoops that the Secretary of State of Oregon, Bill Bradbury, made me jump through in order to close the political party once it had been open and established. And it was just, they do things because they can, and they make people work on nonsense, and they waste our time. So we
People are
really
the
don't need
problem.
politicians. We need functional leaders who can do the work of leadership in different areas, but to have them elected by people and go through the political system is complete garbage, and that needs to be replaced.
Really, people. I mean, politics isn't the answer. I think we've proven that. Politics ends up being just a free for all for whatever free they can get.
And it's a chase after the money.
Well,
But
that's what I mean. I mean, it's so corrupt. And they're all feeding at the trough, and it almost doesn't matter what agency they're working for. Never mind Congress. I mean, Congress is just a bunch of corporate shills because they're all taking
well,
money.
it's one of those things where the process of getting elected is so badly corrupted that we should throw the whole thing out.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. Oh, wow. They're pulling another trailer in.
Yeah, I don't know what we
Hmm.
replace it with. That's the problem. I'm sure it's a it's a complex issue because there's so many people, and now people are so polarized.
And you
People,
can't approach it from any different direction. Everybody pulls you back to the damn R's versus D's, reds versus blues.
yeah,
Any new suggestion, and you're in the sniper range of both sides. They won't
yeah.
accept it, and it's just a big uniparty.
Well, it is a
It,
big uniparty, and a lot of, I mean, to some degree, you know, even the Democrats are polarized against other Democrats, and the same with the Republicans. I mean, it just doesn't work.
well, Kunstler calls them the party of chaos. And I think that's being nice. Chaos is a much better thing than most people give it credit for. The
Oh yeah,
Democrats are currently the party of ignorance, but the Republicans are the party of more ignorance. And so we desperately need to figure out who can do the work that needs to be done. But first, what work needs to be done? I mean, let's face it, if the country wanted to, we could replace the entire electrical power grid with less than $1 billion and have it so that everybody could have free access to energy all the time. Hell, we might even have free energy. You can't tell because the legal system has it locked up in so many massive ways. And the whole thing about the way the legal system works, when you go and get a job as a professional and you sign your initial contracts, you have a non disclosure agreement that's mandatory for being able to work at a place. And if you're going to do significant work, you can't talk about what your work is to other people. And that makes sense because that's the business of the business. But I
yeah.
signed non-disclosure agreements 30 years ago when I was working in line with NASA, and I have no idea whether they're still lawful or not because haven't worked for the company for 25 years, but I have the integrity to follow them because I said I wouldn't talk about what I did, and if I put it out there, I could do significant damage to that company. But right now, ethics doesn't seem to be part of the American way of life. That if you are ethical, that means that people will take advantage of you by being unethical and work around you. And so I'm really at the point where I want absolutely nothing to do with the way it is. And I'm quitting my watching of the internet because the things that I used to watch now are just knee jerk reactions to things that are said by the lamestream media that I'm already avoiding. So if I'm
Yeah,
avoiding
right.
the topic, I don't care who's talking about it. I don't want to hear it. And so people like Grizz, who are at least trying to talk and do something different, I like to watch because Grizz, his whole show is a major league LARP, a live action role play. And by listening to the people talk about religion, even though I don't agree with concepts of religion, religion is really a philosophy when it comes down to it. And the only reason it's taken off more than philosophy is because the huge amounts of money associated with it. But the huge amounts of money associated with everything are fake, phony, and full of BS. And as long as the banking system can print as much money as they want and support the political system and the economic system and whatever, we're working in something that isn't going to work ever for the masses of people, but we're not given the opportunity to try anything different because of the construction of the legal system that prescribes to you what you have to do, even to the point of invasion of privacy. There's nothing
Well,
that
they
the
set
legal
that up
system
this
does.
way, Lenny, because they're protecting themselves. It's a power
Sure,
trip.
they are.
And,
And
and
it's
basically, at
time
the
to
bottom
pull
of the
the plug.
bottom of understanding, people are really selfish. People are really selfish, and they're self-absorbed, and all they care about really is, what do I want? What do I need? What does he
But
give me?
most people aren't getting anything they need. They're stuck on the treadmill of going to work to pay for a price of living that can't be afforded by the work that they're doing. Hang on, I got to chase a dog.
All right.
I looked outside and there's a black and white animal outside the window. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. And I look over and the cat's asleep here and it's a black and white animal. So that black and white animal is not the one that belongs here. So I'm guessing that dog probably came with the trailer they just pulled in. And that while they're placing the trailer and getting it set up, because this is a trailer park, that dog probably has some freedom to run around loose. But typically, we don't allow animals around here to run around loose, at least not dogs. It's a strange deal. I've always been in places where dogs and cats respected each other, but here in this trailer park, the dogs are apparently taught to chase and kill cats. And cats are not very well appreciated by people who aren't cat people. And so outdoor cats really have to fight for their existence, which is silly because there's plenty of room for everybody to be happy. And the dogs
Yep.
and cats wouldn't fight each other if it wasn't for the humans teaching the dogs to chase the cats.
Yeah. Humans are the problem. People are the problem. I keep saying that, and that is a very simplistic answer, but that is, in fact, what's going on.
Well, I don't wish to be part of the problem, so I'm not participating except at a minimal level where I will take their money and I will spend it at the grocery store and do the things I have to do just to make it by. If I happen to get into a conversation with somebody on the street, I'm pleasant, they're pleasant, everything seems to work out just fine.
Yeah.
But it really gets to me when the conversation turns to things that I don't care about. And most of the people who I run into and talk to don't watch television. The people who do watch television are the people who are addicted to their phones. I don't bother to talk to.
No, I don't talk to them either. As you
We've
know, I
got,
don't even have a phone.
yeah, I found out that I could download a chess clock app to my phone. So now when I go to chess club, I have a clock timer that we can use to play chess with. So I
Oh,
thought
cool.
that was pretty cool. I have a chess clock. I've had it for maybe 45, 50 years. I got it as a teenager when I was playing chess in high school, but it is buried probably in my storage unit in Oregon, which I don't know if I'll ever get back to, but that's the way things are. easy come, easy go. We're born into the world with nothing. We can leave the world when we die with nothing. But I don't think there's a nothing when you die afterwards. I think your consciousness carries on, and that the whole explanation of life and death that we have is bogus. I think that's another thing that's been caught up in the knowledge base, and religion has sort of claimed some sort of primacy over the values that we hold.
Yeah.
And basic common sense should be the value that everybody holds. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter who was the son of God or whatever. And I don't know if you've been watching Cliff High lately, but he's been
Every once in
talking.
a while, I watch him. You know,
He's on a
every once in
kick
a while. I
right
don't.
now about the space aliens being the Elohim of the Bible. And I watch him because he's funny. And I watch him because I used to follow his predictions, and his predictions seem to come true, but never in the time frame that he was calling for them to come true. But there are different markers within his time frame sense that tell me that his perspective of the world, which was taken by watching the internet before it was heavily censored and monitoring word usage, makes perfect sense as a viable approach to a way of life. The way I have of life is to take things in balance and weigh what's going on and make my decisions so that I can leave the balance there. That if I'm going to take something out over here, I'm going to put something back over there so that everything is either enhanced by my presence or not affected much at all. But I definitely don't like to be a drain on the present situation. And if I find that I'm uncomfortable somewhere, I'll leave as opposed to arguing anymore.
Yeah, I often don't argue to begin with. Just don't even bother. There's just so many idiots, walking around. There's so many idiots, and they really aren't paying attention. They don't do any verifiable, honest research. They
There are a
just
lot of good people walking around too, just trying to make their way
I
with
totally agree with you.
using common sense to figure out what they're supposed to do.
Yeah,
But they get trapped in doing something that isn't approved of by the powers that be, and the sabotage units come out.
yeah,
And it's sort of interesting because you can tell when the sabotage units are out. BitChute sent me a email that thanked me for being on their site for 4 years now. So I went to the link to see what was up, and I got there, and the 4 posts that I've made at BitChute, all copies of what was on YouTube at some point, have this thing saying, beware, content, something about bad content on it.
right,
And I'm
right.
thinking, what the fuck?
The
What?
censorship is really off the hook now. The
Yeah,
censorship is really off the hook.
I
It
don't
doesn't matter what
understand.
site you're
It
on,
must be
they're all
something I
censoring us.
chose at some point, but they, anything I have that's a video on BitChute gives a warning about the graphics associated with the video. And the graphics associated with the video are what you're seeing right now, you and me talking on air. There's no graphics, but they're so worried about content for under 18-year-olds because the stupid politicians have made it a spot where they can fine corporations. But the corporations that get fined are the mom and pop organizations that are just trying to barely make it. You
Yeah,
get the big corporations who get fined, but they get fined 1% of the profit that they made out of the thing. So they're paying $1 billion of fine, but they're making $100 billion of money by doing what they were doing. So the fine is just another cost of doing business. And
Right.
the whole thing needs to be crashed. We might as well go to the government seizing all of industry and then parsing it out to people who could do the stuff, because ever since they made corporations people with that silly law, uh, corporations have no human responsibility and outlive every human that exists. So, how can we compete with a corporation? And now the corporations create what's the meaning of life. So, I don't want to deal with any corporations. Unfortunately, I have to put fuel in the car, I have to eat. So I'll deal with the places I can go, but really, there's a lot fewer places that we can go. And it isn't going to be too long before the Walmarts and the other super box stores start closing because they can't get their product cheap from China because the rest of the world has us outside their economic system because our silly government has decided that we're going to declare war on everybody.
Yeah, I don't trust our government to do anything. So when you say the government should do this or should do that, I don't trust this government to do anything.
I
Because
think the government should stand down and get out of the way, to tell you the truth.
totally
That's the
stand down
only
and
thing.
get out of the way. All of them. They all should just go home.
The whole thing needs to be reset, and a Congress of what can be reset needs to be formed. But how do you choose participants to such a Congress? And how do you get around the idea that the chase for funding is the only thing that people understand? And so whoever ever has the most toys when they die wins.
Well, and you and I both know that the people with influence and power now are the people that would get chosen again, and they would end up, you know, creating a new system that was created just to benefit them. That's what they were looking for in the first place. I mean, I just don't trust them to do anything anymore.
No, I don't want any part of it. And so I'll continue to do the things I do. But lately, I've been reading a lot of books.
Yeah,
And what I'm reading about is pre current time books so that it, it doesn't happen that there was ever COVIDiocy or that even 911, the towers came down. If the books are written before then, they don't refer to that stuff, so you don't have to deal with it. But a lot of the books that I find I read about, they glorify they glorify the military, the politicians, and the people that work for the system, and
yeah.
write the success stories about how functioning in the system makes you a hero because you can solve a minute problem. But when the real problem is the whole system is forgotten, and even talking about the system is forgotten, I don't want to play. I have no interest in that at all.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Lenny. I just don't I don't see the value in it. I don't see the value in it. And really, it's gotten to the point, as I said earlier, that people are so selfish. They're it's like rather than living with integrity, they prefer to be selfish.
Well, a
And
lot of it is that the people who do live with integrity get burnt every time they turn around.
right,
And people working the system can burn honest people left and right because they know how to bend the rules. And the legal system doesn't work in the favor of people following the rules. It works in favor of people who give them money. The more money, the better it works.
all
And
about
so,
practicality.
unless you can work without a liar and file your own documents, which the court won't accept because the lawyers go to school to figure out how to file documents, the whole system has no bearing on legitimacy at all any longer. And it would have been nice to have a legal system that with rules that could be understood with a sixth grade ability to read so that everybody can follow the law. But now, how do you follow a law when there's so much technical detail that you'd have to spend your life reading page after page of law stuff to even know how things fit?
That's
And
why they
then,
do it that way.
sure, they do.
Yeah, that's why. That's what they're doing, and that's why they do it.
It's why we absolutely need to figure out a different way of doing things, regardless of what is allowed or not allowed. And people who want to just follow the law can. There is no legitimate way to follow all the law. You don't know what you're bound to, and the contracts that you have to sign to do anything. Rent a new place, start a bank account, get a credit card, all the agreements that you have to make in order to be able to do anything bind you to sets of legal responsibility that you can never understand what you just bound yourself to with a signature. But what really kills me now is that it doesn't matter if you sign something or not. If you check a box on the internet, apparently that binds you to some legal agreement. What nonsense.
Yeah. What did we do before the internet? I mean, the world did have more integrity.
Yeah, nowadays, if you read through contracts, there's always contract resolution, and companies insist that you allow them to choose the location and the arbiters who are in place to resolve the problem you have with them. So, even with StreamYard, I had to check a box that said I would play by StreamYard's game rules. If they don't like it, they can kick me off. Well, StreamYard doesn't need to kick me off because they're not a platform that puts out stuff. I still have to have this shipped on over to YouTube or something like that for it to be out. I don't know. My voice is starting to go. I'll let you talk at me for a while.
Well, you've been going at it pretty hot and heavy.
Yeah,
No
it's
wonder
been
you.
haven't been on since the last time we talked,
I
and I
know.
had a bunch to say,
Yeah.
and so it's good to be able to say it. It's good to be able to chat with you. Um, I'll be fine within the next day or two, and I'm going to figure out some sort of an arrangement that I can make to have a space where it's not depleting my resources to be on like this. But at this point, doesn't matter to me. I'll get on when I can, and I'll be the same thorn in the side of everybody who is paying attention, and nobody pays attention, so we get by with anything we want.
Yeah, I tend to empathize with that that sentiment. It's we don't have rational conversations often enough, and rational conversations where there's give and take, and individuals stop talking so goddamn much and listen to what the person sitting across from them has got to say. And there's a mutual respect offered paradigm that has largely been lost, you know, in conversation, especially by the people that are sitting there staring at their phone. They're staring at their phone. I try to engage my son in conversation. I'm lucky to get a grunt out of him because he's staring at his cell phone. And he doesn't even, he'd rather stare at his cell phone than look up and acknowledge his father.
What
And
does
that's
that
just,
say about you?
yeah, right. Yeah. It says I'm like a, just like a schmo that isn't worth me listening to. That's what it tells me.
Well, you
And it shows
see,
disrespect on his, in his regard.
the COVIDiocy made that less disrespectful somehow because everybody was kept apart so that now meaningful conversations in person just don't occur. Everybody got used to texting. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if it's more than 3 lines of text. I'd rather hook up and have the conversation than to just send messages back and forth.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
so many people, they're not going to call you, they're just going to send a text. Oh, I got another email from Andre the other
Oh,
day.
good. What did he have to say?
He said the same thing that he said the first time. He's still where he's at in the VA place, but at least he wrote something in the section of the email that says he's still doing good. I'd go up and visit him, but I just don't have the means to travel. I
Yeah.
don't have a vehicle. I don't have the time or the money or the inclination to want to go out on the road and do something. But the next time I find myself going up to the Medford area, I will definitely try and get a hold of him and see what he's up to. And maybe I'll
Why?
send him a link to a SteamYard when we're here and see if we can get him to join us. But
That would be cool.
the problem is that it's a timing thing. When I sent you the link
Yeah.
this morning, you were on within 5 minutes of when I sent the link, so that didn't waste a lot of resources. But if I have to open up and sit here and wait half an hour, 45 minutes for somebody who received a link to make a decision of whether they want to come in or not, I'll do one of two things. Either I'll get online and start broadcasting, and if nobody shows up, I'll do a monologue, or I'll put a note in the comments and say, back soon, and just close off and leave the studio. But
Yeah.
once you've streamed within a link, that link is no longer available. The next time you come into StreamYard, you have to generate a new link.
Yeah. Well, I found that out too because I saved the link and made a bookmark out of it, and it didn't work. You
Yep.
know. So the new link that you send me is the only way that I can access this particular StreamYard session. I
Right.
actually I actually went to the link while we were talking just now, in the earlier this morning, and I went to the link and I opened it. And of course, it's the same thing. You get started, like do you want to allow your microphone to work, and you know,
Right.
but
That's
I
we're using the same link as the last one we were using because we never went live. It never canceled.
oh, okay.
We are
Well, it would be
live
nice to be
now.
on a link with Andre. I would enjoy that if you could you know manage that. It would be nice to see him, and
I will do that, but only after I find and watch the movie Conversation with Andre.
that's a movie.
Oh, yeah, and it's a good movie, too. If you've never seen it, worth going to look at.
Yeah.
It's just two guys at a table for an hour and a half, but it's one of those movies that you finish it and you say, wow. But I
That's
haven't
cool.
seen it for 20, 25 years. So,
Also, it's an older film.
oh, yeah,
I never heard of it.
mid 80s, maybe even earlier.
Mm.
Well, look at that.
There's
You
Harris.
know, yep. And Harris, there's a link in your mailbox over in Discord if you want to pop in with us. Although we've been on for 45 minutes now. And I don't like to go more than an hour usually. But it's how it goes. We're never going to worry about it. And if it happens, it happens. I don't
Well,
worry
I
about
would say,
anything anymore. I've decided that stress is what'll kill you anytime. And so if the idea is not to stress out, the idea is not to let too many things bother you.
good idea.
It used to be that I was pretty good at stressing out at certain things. And if people didn't understand the way I was explaining something, it would get me upset. Now I realize that the reason they weren't understanding was because I'm so far out there that I have to download a whole bunch of backload to get people to have the idea to catch up with me so that I can have a rational conversation on some of the things I know. And I've been off doing things like creating calendars and working out methods of changing the number of days in a week. I don't even call it a week anymore. I call it a strong. 8 days of a strong is much better than 7 days of a week.
You're funny. I'm telling you.
And so, as it works out, the whole idea is that if I can create a system that works for me and other people can use that system to work it for them, then a bunch of people running around working a new system in the first person singular will work out a lot of the kinks of it so that when we get together, we can talk about what works for you, what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and get it so that eventually we evolve a new system. But the economics is a real problem because until we can find a way to get people food and gas and transportation and communications without paying some corporation money, then we have a problem.
Well, it all runs on money, doesn't it? I mean,
And
I don't run on money. That's for sure. I don't have that much of it, so I don't run on it.
no, we run on a minimum level of money because you have to have a minimum level because you do have to eat and have a roof over your head and a few other things. Hey,
Hmm.
I heard something that was troublesome, but I have no way of confirming it. So I'll mention it to you and see if you can confirm it. When they cleared out San Francisco to have the guy from China go and visit with Biden last year,
Yeah,
they moved all the homeless to a camp and then offed them. And so the
that's what I
reason
heard
the
too.
homeless haven't come back is because they no longer exist because they were offed.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. I've seen no evidence to support it, but I heard the same thing. It was really a disturbing thing. I only heard it once. Uh, don't even remember where I heard it from,
Well, the
but
fact that
I
you
heard there
heard
was
it and I
water.
heard it, and this is the first time we're bringing it up,
Hmm.
means that there's a good chance it came from the same source, but there's a good chance that it came from different sources and it's actually true.
Yeah,
I know some people who've been homeless over times. Heck, I've been homeless for a while.
so have I.
And so the idea of being collected as a homeless person brought to a camp and offed, I just don't know. Welcome, Harris. How's your day been?
Hello, hello. I just came to say hi because I saw you and Bruce. It's been a while to see Bruce, so I just wanted to say personally hello to him.
I appreciate that, Harris. Thank you. It's good
Uh,
to see you too.
Great. What you just said about the homeless, I also picked that up, and I couldn't see what really happened with the homeless people. So, from what I got, they disappeared within 1 day. So, 1 day everybody was there, and the next no one was there. So, I don't know what's going on.
Well, there's no question that it's easy enough to sweep people up in a pickup, put them into vans, and move them somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's totally another thing to put them in vans, take them to some place and execute them, and not have them come back because they no longer live.
Yeah.
The
I mean, I
former,
actually heard the word slaughter being used, that they slaughtered them, all the homeless people that they picked up. I mean, that's
so
pretty
the
good.
idea is if we find that that's true, this regime has to come down.
I think it has to come down anyway.
Well, yeah,
You know? It has to come
it
down
really
anyway.
does.
So much fear porn out there now.
That's too much attention that we've paid to the reality just by discussing that topic. But I had to bring it up with you because I really don't know if it's true or not. And to verify accuracy in the media is kind of a hopeless thing because there's no standard by which you can compare anymore.
Well,
And
and
we get
also they all have their, you know, they all have their shtick. You know, they all have you know, what's the word that I'm missing here? You know, and
Agenda.
agenda. Thank you, Harris. That is the word that I was looking for. They all have it. And I'm the one that speaks English here. Yeah, I think it's pretty funny that you came up with it. You know, what is your native language?
Greek.
Greek. Okay. Wow. So you speak not only English, but Greek and probably 2 or 3 other languages, right?
Well, if you count ancient Greek, then yeah, I understand a little bit. I tried to learn a bit of Spanish because my godson is from Spain, but I wasn't very successful to that.
hablo español un poco.
Un poco, un poco.
Yeah. And I've been all over. I've been all over. You know, South Mexico and Central America, and I just never picked up English. I'm really good at English, and I'm just lucky. I consider myself very lucky that at least, you know, for quite some time, English was the quote unquote universal language. And
Yeah.
those of us who were born and raised in America are very, very fortunate. I have friends from overseas, and they all speak English.
Yeah.
I don't speak their language. I'm talking
Yeah.
with a guy from Bulgaria and a woman from Sweden and another woman from Norway and blah de blah. It's just amazing to me that these people are that well educated that they, you know, that they can communicate.
I think most foreigners speak a much better form of English than most Americans. That Americans get into slang and they get into local dialects, and that there are some Americans who might be talking English, but I can't understand a word they're saying.
Yeah. Personally, I was always fascinated with the English language and how I came to learn, let's say, a lot of words. So I have a pretty big vocabulary, let's say. It was from when I was a kid. I was into rock and metal music and all of that, and I used to go and buy those CDs, and I learned all my words from the lyrics. So I really wanted to teach myself, let's say, in that way. So that's what happened with me. But yeah, I believe the English language is great, and it's the lingua franca of our age. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
And how lucky we are who grew up speaking English that we can go somewhere and, you know, that was the most trouble I had with all the times, and I've traveled a fair amount overseas, and I would routinely meet someone that I wanted to talk to,
mhm.
but they didn't have any English, and I didn't have any Spanish or whatever language they were speaking, and so we couldn't talk. And that's difficult. That's difficult.
There is a well-known anecdote in our parts of the world that at some point in the late 70s or early 80s, there was like an international conference where they wanted to, let's say, agree upon the international language so that everyone is going to use. And supposedly, they came down to two languages. One was English, that one, and the other one was Greek. And the reason for the Greek one, it was because in terms of the back then they realized that computers they were gonna evolve and play a very important role, let's say, in the future. So they realized that Greek language maybe be a good candidate in order to capture this complexity, let's say, of the computer and the programming languages and all that. But of course, English became the international standard. So that was great too.
Well, and Greek goes way back. I mean, the English is a relatively new language in comparison to Greek or Latin.
Hey, it's all Greek to me.
You know what we say? You guys say it's,
that
you guys say it's all Greek to me. The Greeks we say it's all Chinese to me.
right,
So, yeah.
roger that.
It wouldn't surprise me if within 10 years we had to be learning to speak Chinese and writing in character.
Yeah. Ideograms.
There's just
Yeah,
way
that's
more
quite
people.
Yeah.
Well, it's an hour. Do we want to go longer?
It's fine. It was great, and I will go back and watch the whole thing. So.
I had enough, but I could go farther. So.
Yeah, I think with my voice and stuff that I really don't want to go much longer. And so let me thank the audience for watching. It was good to be back on. It has been almost a week since I last broadcast. And I've been under the weather, so I'm going to crawl out to the sauna today and bake myself for a couple hours. And I'm hoping that whatever it is that's had me down, which is much better today than it's been the last 2 days. I spent yesterday sleeping for much of the day, getting up, doing something, then saying, okay, I'm lying down again. But I have a cat that makes it real easy to not get up out of bed because you have to get out from under the cat, and it's rather difficult.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's good to see you guys. Thank you, Lenny, for creating another window of opportunity with this StreamYard session, and it's always good to see you, Harris.
Yeah.
You know, I look forward to future exchanges.
Me too.
Cheers.
And before we take off, let me say that, Lizzie, if you drop me your email address in Discord, or just drop me your Discord, I will make sure that you get an invite to come in the next time we go live so that we can find out who Mountain Devil really is. All right, everybody, take care. It has been a pleasure, and we'll talk to you all again soon.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.